You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look at better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 6th part of What If Deku Meets Sonic? Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Sonic Speed 546 on fanfiction.net. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Todoroki kept on running, still managing to keep the lead. He didn't know how long those robots would keep everyone busy. I didn't think so many people would have dodged my first attack when this race started. Todoroki said to himself. I may have underestimated my classmates. Todoroki is maintaining the lead. But what's this? Class 1B student Maurice Hedgehog is right on his tail. Todoroki glanced over his shoulder to find classic Sonic accelerating towards him and was catching up fast. So, this is Sonic's younger brother that I've heard about. Todoroki thought before his right leg started to freeze up. It's without any doubt that you're faster than me. Which is why I need to make sure you stay behind me. Todoroki spoke before he stomped the ground, sending multiple waves of ice at Classic Sonic. Classic Sonic sped up as he ran around multiple ice spikes that protruded from the ground. He then jumped over another wave of ice before he started to parkour off the very ice that was coming at him. He jumped from pieces of ice that came up from the ground to other pieces of ice. Using his hands he swung around an ice spike before letting go and using the momentum to throw himself forward. He then mantled over another piece of ice that shot up from the ground before catching himself on another block of ice. Classic Sonic lifted himself with one arm while his legs sticked out. With his free hand he cupped it over his eyes as he looked afar to see Todoroki continuing his sprint. The blue hedgehog then hopped off the block of ice he was on before continuing his chase after the student. Talk about agility. Maurice managed to get through all of Todoroki's ice. He dodged all of it. This kid has skill. Todoroki thought, slightly impressed. Todoroki looked forward right before he came to a brief stop. Classic Sonic was confused at the sudden stop at first before he looked ahead and too came to a skidding stop. For those of you who thought the first obstacle was easy, let's see how you feel about the second one. It's the fall. In front of Classic Sonic and Todoroki were hundreds of stone pillars that were only connected to each other by tight ropes. But the scary thing about this obstacle was that if you had any slip up then you would find yourself falling into a seemingly bottomless pit. Maurice. Classic Sonic turned around to find his future self running towards him before coming to a stop. Nice. You made it. Sonic then noticed Todoroki to the side. Hey Roki. That was cool what you did back there with the pointer and all. But let's try not to kill anyone else, capiche? Todoroki only hummed back. Sonic then walked to the edge before he looked down and whistled at the abyss. We should probably try to find a way across this thing. When I passed by Boom Boy he did not look happy to see me. Sonic snickered. You blue bast. Speaking of which. The three turned around and saw that Bakugou was rocketing through the air towards them. I'll be damned if I let you three pass me. I'll do anything to win this. He screamed, closing the distance. Watch and learn Maurice. Sonic said before he started to grind on the tightrope with his feet. Classic Sonic watched with curiosity before he followed his future self. The both of them then did a mixture of grinding across the tightropes and hopping from pillar to pillar. It looks like Todoroki has lost the lead as Sonic and Maurice skate down the course. Clever. Todoroki mumbled, his right leg then froze up as he froze the entire tightrope. Using his ice he copied Sonic's move and grinded across it. Bakugou passed over Todoroki, ignoring him completely as he flew towards the hedgehogs, leaving behind a trail of explosions in his wake. Incoming! Sonic yelled. Bakugou came flying at them with a mad grin on his face. But luckily classic Sonic dodged to the side while Sonic jumped just before Bakugou would have slammed into him. Mind if I hitch a ride? Sonic shouted before he landed on the explosive teen's back. What the? Get the hell off me, you blue weasel! Bakugou yelled as he started to fly around with his explosives erratically. But Sonic continued to hold on. So we're going with Blue Weasel now? It's either Blue Mouse or Weasel Pal. You can't use both. Sonic quipped as Bakugou tried to shake him off. It looks like Sonic is riding on top of Bakugou like this is some sort of rodeo. Present Mike shouted. As Bakugou flew around randomly, desperate to shake the blue hedgehog off. Todoroki was making his way to the end of the second obstacle while more students had showed up, including Izuku, who was holding onto a piece of a pointer bot. Kaken. Midoriya didn't know how to react as he watched Bakugou yell incoherent words and struggle in the air. Uraraka, Mina and Tsuyu walked up next to Izuku. Can someone tell me what Bakugou is doing? Mina asked. Wait, what's that on his back? Ribbit, it looks blue. Tsuyu pointed out. Is that Sonic? Mina squinted her eyes. I think it is. And hey! I can see Maurice near them. Uraraka pointed forward. Unknowingly to her, when she had mentioned this name, it had caught the attention of a sliver white-haired girl that was nearby. Well, whatever he's doing, it's quite funny. But we have a race to continue. Tsuyu croaked before she crawled across one of the tightropes. Yee-haw! Sonic cheered as they flew around. Meanwhile classic Sonic was on the ground below, dying of laughter as he watched. Suddenly Bakugou dipped downward at high speeds, about to hit the ground. Just before they crashed, Sonic planted his feet on Bakugou's back before he kicked his legs. With Bakugou's speed plus the extra push, it was enough to send the out-of-control blonde barreling down into the pit below. Sonic did a front flip before landing on his feet next to his past self. They shared a high five before they started to run. They were only a couple of pillars away from the end of this obstacle, where they could see Todoroki had just reached a red staircase that would lead to the next obstacle. Come on, buddy. We're almost done with this. Just as the two were about to jump, Bakugou came out of nowhere from the abyss below in front of them. Their eyes widened as Bakugou had both hands pointed towards them with miniature explosions beginning to form. Watch out! Die! An explosion blinded the two as they were thrown back. Sonic landed on one of the pillars while classic Sonic was slammed into the side of a nearby pillar before he began to fall into the bottomless pit. Maurice! Sonic shouted in fear. See ya at the finish line, extras. Bakugou laughed before he flew off. Oh no! Bakugou takes the lead while Maurice is falling. Is this it for the tiny hedgehog? Present Mike screamed in fear. The people in the stadium and for those who were watching at home gasped out of worry for the little blue hedgehog. Todoroki had just reached the last step before he hesitated and turned around. He debated to go back and help but decided against it before running towards the next obstacle. Classic Sonic waved around frantically. He saw the ground below was rapidly on the way. He closed his eyes expecting to feel pain, but he felt nothing. He slowly opened his eyes to find in shock that he was floating just above the ground. He also quickly noticed that he had a purple glow around him. Wait a second, he's seen this glow before. Up at the top, Sonic looked down at what was happening in awe. He then noticed a nearby presence. Just a couple of pillars away was a girl with short silver hair. She had both of her hands pointing down at classic Sonic down below. I got you, Maurice. She groaned. She then steadily raised her hands as Classic Sonic was levitated all way back up and was set next to Sonic before the purple glow then faded away. Class 1B student Reiko Yanagi just saved Maurice from a nasty fall. That's a hero in the making if I ever saw one. Reiko collapsed to her knees as Classic Sonic rushed to her out of concern. I'm okay, it's just I've never used my quirk so many times before. She huffed while Classic Sonic gave her a thumbs up as thanks for saving him. Sonic on the other hand had a strange feeling of familiarity. That silver hair, those powers, it's almost like this girl is this universe's version of Silver. Sonic thought in shock. He shook his head though before walking over and kneeling beside the girl. Thanks for saving my little buddy. What's your name, kid? Reiko Yanagi. Why, you're Morris's brother, right? She asked. That's right. And it seems like you two are friends. I would love to stay and chat, but we're still in the middle of a race. Sonic said, noticing that a bunch of students had already passed them. You need any help getting up? I'm fine, I just need a few minutes to catch my breath. She panted. Sounds good. And thanks once again. Sonic exclaimed while Classic Sonic waved at her before they both took off through the stairs and on the way to the next obstacle. It wasn't long before both hedgehogs arrived at the final obstacle that was a minefield that stretched on for a bit. Dozens of students were already making their way across, with some being unlucky enough to step on a mine and be consumed by a pink explosion. Ito was trying but failing to outrun the mines he was setting off. Sonic did strangely notice that Midoriya was off to the side digging up and collecting mines while putting them in a pile with a piece of metal that came from the pointer bots as well. He also came to realize that Midoriya was in no pain. Had he not used his quirk at all yet? Todoroki and Bakugou were already halfway through the field as they battled each other for the lead. Your deceleration of war was sent to the wrong person. Bakugou shouted, sending an explosion at Todoroki's face. Todoroki managed to dodge before grabbing onto Bakugou's arm and freezing a bit of it before Bakugou swatted it away. The two powerhouses continued this back-and-forth exchange of attacks and counterattacks while somehow not setting a single mine off. Can our two leaders continue this fight and stay in front of the competition? More students have just arrived and are gaining way. I think it's time we get some payback at Boom Boy. What do you think? Sonic smirked. Classic Sonic answered by cracking his knuckles. At a burst of speed. The two blue blurs left a trail of pink explosions behind them as they ran. As they got closer to the two, Sonic jumped high into the air while Classic Sonic kept running. Hey Boom Boy! The two turned around while Bakugou's eyes widened, seeing Sonic in the air coming directly at him. How about you have a taste of your own medicine? Sonic's foot smashed into Bakugou's face, which immediately caused the boy to trip up on himself, but before he hit the ground it was almost slow motion as Classic Sonic zigzagged around the two boys, making sure to step on every mine there was while being fast enough to make it where in his perception the mines hadn't even exploded yet. Classic Sonic then booked it out of there while Sonic used Bakugou's face to launch himself high into the air. Almost right after, Todoroki and Bakugou found themselves at the center of a massive pink explosion. Sonic did multiple front flips as the explosion happened behind him. He landed before he continued his sprint side by side with Classic Sonic to make sure they won't get caught by the mines they set off. The two then reached the end and came to a stop. And just like that, the Hedgehog duo takes the lead once more. And in explosive style. That oughta teach him. Sonic snickered, looking back at the work they've done. But before they could start to run and finally complete this race, they saw a massive explosion that even dwarfed theirs. What the heck was that explosion? That was way more powerful than it should be. The Sonics looked on in shock before Classic Sonic squinted his eyes and pointed at something that was flying from the explosion. Everyone below looked in awe as they saw someone with messy green hair that was flying while holding onto a piece of metal. Whatever the case, Class 1A Izukumidoriya is flying over the competition. Both Sonics leapt out of the way as Izuku came crashing down with the metal plate he was holding onto before he started to slide forward from the momentum. Both hedgehogs nodded at each other before they caught up with Midoriya, with Sonic grabbing a wire from the metal plate he was riding on and pulled him like he was on a sleigh while classic Sonic pushed him from behind. "Nice to have you join us, Midoriya." Sonic smiled. Hey guys. Why are you two helping me out again? Wouldn't it make more sense to leave me behind and run to the finish line and win? Izuku asked, confused on why they were pulling him to the finish. "It's what friends are for," Sonic replied. Deku. Blue mice. You damn bastards. And because I don't think you'll be able to outrun that. Midoriya gulped in agreement as the three entered the tunnel that would lead them to the arena as well as victory. As they got closer, they could hear the cheering from the stands. Izuku is riding to the finish line like he's Santa on his sleigh. "What the heck are you teaching these kids, Aizawa?" Present Mike questioned. "I'm not doing anything," Aizawa answered. "This is just pure teamwork, dedication, and even." Aizawa almost gagged saying it. Friendship. With one final pull by Sonic and push from classic Sonic, Izuku was sent spinning into the arena as the stadium cheered at his appearance. And the winner of the obstacle race is Izuku Midoriya. Izuku had never once in his life thought he would ever achieve such a concept. The word might as well be alien to him. In his life he faced failure after failure with no one there to support him or tell him that he could do it, with the exception of his mother. But today, he had finally done it. Izuku with shaky legs stood up from the piece of the pointer bot he had towed throughout the whole race. His breath shook as he looked at the thousands of people cheering for him from the stands. He could see himself on the multiple jumbo screens that littered around the stadium, being broadcasted live to everyone around the world watching from home. Right now he knew his mom was most likely crying tears of joy. Midoriya's wide eyes traveled up the stands to where the pro heroes were watching before they met All Mights. Toshinori nodded towards him with a warm smile while clapping. Izuku felt hot tears beginning to form before wiping them away with his arm. "I did it, I actually did it. I won. And with that, Izuku Midoriya is our champion." Present Mike exclaimed, receiving another roar from the audience. "Nice job, man." Midoriya turned to find both Sonic and classic Sonic giving him their usual bright smile. In return, Izuku's dropped, but by only a hair. But of course, the only reason why he had won first place was because of these two hedgehogs. They could have easily have just used their speed to win, but instead took the time to help him out. They deserved this, not him. If they didn't help out, then he might have faced Bakugou's wrath. Thanks guys. Although I think you both deserve it more, if it wasn't for you two then I wouldn't have ever made it to first. Izuku spoke, that look of accomplishment on his face disappearing. Both hedgehogs shared a look before rolling their eyes. "Oh, don't go and start beating yourself up now, Midoriya." Sonic chuckled. "You made it by through this race all on your own. You even got past every obstacle on your own as well. We just decided to lend a helping hand at the end. So as far as I'm concerned, you earned that win." Izuku stayed quiet. Did he earn it? After all of the strong work and training, the villain attack, and the constant bullying from his childhood. Did he truly earn it? Did he truly deserve this success? Yes, I do. I did earn this win. And I'll prove to everyone who doubts me that I'll earn the right to be hero. You're right, you will. We'll show everyone just what we're made of. Sonic exclaimed as the three shared an high five. By now other competitors started to come out the end of the tunnel with the crowd cheering at their arrival. Bakugou put his hands on his knees out of exhaustion but had a look of anguish, disbelief and anger on his face when he saw who won. Deku, no way, not again. He seethed, thinking back to when he lost the mock battles. His eyes narrowed at the two hedgehogs next to him. You damn mice. Bakugou quickly remembered what the hedgehogs did to him during the mine section. I'll make you both pay, I swear on it. Todoroki stood off from the side watching the trio who made the top 3. He had challenged both Midoriya and Sonic for this very reason. It was only the first event and the both of them already had him beat. And then there was the little one. Todoroki didn't know Sonic had a little brother until learning about it recently. He knew he was in the hero course too like his older brother, but he never would have expected Maurice could match Sonic in speed and power. He didn't think he would have to worry about anyone else besides Sonic and Midoriya, but after his little scuffle with classic Sonic it seemed he had another challenge to overcome. As Todoroki watched the 3, his eyes met Sonic's. Sonic smiled and waved, "Hey Roki. You did great back there. Sorry about bombing you earlier though." Todoroki didn't reply. He only turned around and walked away. The 3 looked at each other and shrugged. Deku, Sonic, Maurice. The 3 turned to find a tired-out Uraraka jogging towards them. She then stopped to catch her breath. You guys were amazing. I can't believe you 3 made it to top 3. She panted, but then Uraraka backtracked. On second thought I kind of expected Sonic and Maurice to do great, but Deku you did awesome too. Thanks Uraraka, Izuku blushed while scratching the back of his head. You should be proud of yourself too you know. You weren't that far behind us. Sonic pointed out with classic Sonic nodding in agreement. Thanks Sonic. She beamed. Ida then ran out the tunnel behind her. Hey Ida. Nice dash HM. Hey. What's wrong? Sonic asked. Ida walked over to them but had a look of disappointment and slight sadness on his face. I'm okay Sonic, thanks for asking. It's just I really wanted to make my brother proud today. But instead I looked like a fool out there. Ida explained with frustration in his voice. Hey man, don't be too HRD on yourself, you still qualified in the end. I bet your brother is super proud of you right now. Sonic exclaimed. Ida laughed. You know Sonic, despite how rambunctious you can be, you do know how to bring someone's mood up. What hat? I'm not rambunctious. Sonic tried to defend himself. Let's agree to disagree Sonic, Izuku chuckled as the 5 laughed together. Suddenly, something or someone who had ran out of the tunnel caught classic Sonic's eyes which made the little hedgehog run off over to them. Where's Maurice going? Ida questioned. Sonic watched his past self make his way towards someone. A familiar blonde with horns on her head. He's going to talk with his girlfriend. Sonic teased. Uraraka gushed although Ida made a face at the 2. Guys, I think it's obvious that Maurice doesn't have any romantic feelings for Pony nor does Pony have any feelings for Maurice. Kidding. Sonic threw his hands up and considering this is technically me we're talking about here. Sonic muttered under his breath. Did you say something Sonic? Nothing. Classic Sonic ran past a deprived Momo who had Mineta clinging onto her back with his sticky ball while having that perverted grin plastered to his face over to Pony who was currently lying on the ground exhausted. Hey Maurice. Don't mind me just casually dying down here. She gave a pained laugh. God, I need to get into shape. Classic Sonic chuckled before offering her a hand. But Pony shook her head. I'm okay, I think I like it down here more. Haha, I'll be up in a few, I just need to rest for a bit until the next event. The young Sonic gave her a thumbs up before patting her shoulder. He then made his way to the tunnel. There was one more person he was hoping would make it on time. So far 31 players finished the race and only the top 42 qualifies to the next round. Classic Sonic became increasingly worried as more people passed by. But then he spotted a shine of silver. He smiled brightly as Reiko Yanagi ran through getting 37th place. He immediately ran to her aid as she fell to her knees gasping and coughing. Classic Sonic rubbed her back as Reiko coughed more before helping her up to her feet. I don't think I've ever been in so much pain before. Why couldn't I just stay home and continue watching spooky things? She questioned herself. Classic Sonic only cocked an eyebrow. Spooky things. Nonetheless, thank you Maurice, I don't know what I would do without you, she gave a slight smile. Classic Sonic nodded. After all, he was just trying to repay her back for saving him from that nasty fall. Soon the race was finished. Luckily most of Class 1A and 1B qualified, with Aoyama having a sigh of relief when he barely passed by getting 42nd in the race. The R-rated hero Midnight then stepped onto the podium with a mic in hand. The first game for the first years is finally over, and what a game it was. She began. Now, let's take a quick look at the standings, shall we? Behind her on the monitor screen a full list of all 42 competitors from first to last was displayed. Only the top 42 will advance to the next round. But don't be too let down if you didn't make the cut. We still have other opportunities for you to shine. But now the real fun begins. A mischievous smile formed on Midnight's lips. The chance to fully move yourselves into the limelight, so give it your best. Let's see what we have in store for you next. The spinner from before displayed on the monitor screen before spinning at high speeds. What will it be? Will it be your wildest fantasies come to life? Or will it be torture that waits for you? Just waiting to see is enough torture. Midnight gasped. The spinner then came to abrupt stop, revealing the title of the next game. Cavalry Battle. A cavalry battle? We're riding horses now. Sonic thought, his ears then perked up at the sound of Kaminari's voice. Ah man, ISCK at cavalry battles. He whined. Huh, it's not an individual event. I wonder how they'll split us up. Ribbit, so you wondered. Allow me to explain. Midnight said as the monitor behind her changed to a picture of Pro Heroes 13 and present Mike carrying All Might, who was waving at the viewer. Sonic had to suppress a snort. The participants will form teams of 3 to 4 people as they see fit. In theory, it's basically the same as a regular playground game. However, there is one major difference. Each player has been assigned a point value based on their results from the obstacle race. A point system, huh? Sounds fun. Sonic thought. So that means each team will have a different point value based on which students are on it. Uraraka guessed to Mina, who nodded. Maybe you should shut up and let me explain it to you. Midnight yelled, startling the two girls. Yikes, would not want to go get on her bad side. Sonic whispered to his past self, who definitely agreed with him with a fast nod. Now then, the points assigned goes up by implements of 5, starting from the bottom. For example, 42nd place is worth 5 and 41st is worth 10 and so on. Midnight explained. So the better you did on the race, the more points you have. But wait, wouldn't that mean? Sonic glanced to Izuku on his left, who also was starting to realize. And the point value assigned to first place contestant is 10 million. Sonic and Classic Sonic were in shock as they heard the number of points Midoriya was now deemed worth. Why the heck was the gap between him and Izuku in points so massive? Sonic only had 225 points for getting second, while Classic Sonic got 220 for getting third. He glanced to Midoriya, who was as pale as a ghost. Sonic then heard all of the students around them whispering. He and Classic Sonic turned around and could see every single student was staring at Izuku with hungry eyes. Even some of their friends like Ida, Kirishima and even Pony of all people. Both hedgehogs then started to slowly but awkwardly scoot away from Izuku while whistling, since they were the ones who threw Midoriya out of the tunnel first, therefore giving him the win. It didn't matter, however, as Midoriya was too petrified to notice. You know, little buddy, I'm starting to think either one of us should have just taken first place for ourselves. For Midoriya's sake, Sonic concluded while classic Sonic gave him a, "You think?" look. Sonic put his hands up in defense. Hey. Don't give me that look. I just thought it would have been nice. How was I supposed to know it would put him into this mess? Sonic argued, only receiving a shrug in response. That's right. It's survival of the fittest with the chance of those at the bottom to rise to the top. Midnight shouted. Midnight then went on to explain the rules of the game. The game will last 15 minutes and each individual points will be added to make up a team's total. Everyone will know how much a person is worth because of the headbands everyone will be wearing, which displays the amount of points they got. To gain points they would have to steal headbands from other teams, which is probably why everyone would be gunning for Midoriya. The top 4 teams who have the most points by then end of the game will move on to the finals. They were also told they had to wear them from the neck up, which kinda confused Sonic because how was he supposed to fit that thing on him? Maybe if he stretched it really well. And so, even if your team falls or your headband gets stolen, you'll still be able to play until time's up. Midnight continued. But make a team fall on purpose and I'll slap you with a red card. You'll be disqualified. Midnight warned, which made Bakugou scoff. Now go and make your teams. You have 15 minutes. Midnight said as a countdown began on the monitor screen behind the podium. Sonic then turned to classic Sonic as everyone else began to make their teams. Okay little buddy, what I'm about to say might seem crazy, but I think we should split up for this 1-inch, Sonic stated. Classic Sonic gave his future self a confused look. Hear me out. We've been together thick and thin. We've stuck together like peanut butter and jelly. Ever since we've, well. Sonic looked around to make sure no one was listening. Arrived to this world. He whispered. Classic Sonic only blinked at him. So I want to see how we will do if we're against each other for once. Since the race didn't really count. You know what I mean. Classic Sonic scratched his chin before nodding. He did understand. Sonic just wanted to see what his younger self could do without his involvement. At least on the same side. And maybe this was one of those moments where it was up to him alone to win this and move on to the finals. This time without the help of his future self. Classic Sonic had wondered and was even a bit worried about this before the mock battles. If he relied too heavily on his older self without learning things on his own, then it may undo the existence of his future self, since who would have taught his future self? Right? Time travel is always a loony subject. Especially after the events on Little Planet and the Time Eater. Classic Sonic agreed by nodding his head. Alright. Good luck little buddy. The two shared a fist bump before going off in different directions to look for a team. Sonic noticed that a good portion of students including Class 1A surrounded Bakugou in hopes to team up with him, but he didn't even know their names. Was he really that self-absorbed? A few students had approached Sonic to see if he wanted to team up, which made sense. He had over 200 points attached to his name, he weighed less and was smaller than others, so it would be easy to carry him if he was the rider, and if was carrying then his speed and agility would be a massive advantage over the other teams. However, he respectfully declined because there was one classmate he wanted to team up with. He spotted the puff of green hair from afar alone. Since Izuku had 10 million points, you would think people would want to team up with him, since that would be an instant win. But that instant win applies to other teams too if they steal that $10 million headband from Midoriya. No one so far was willing to team up with him, since they knew whatever team he was on would be the focal point of all teams. But Sonic liked a challenge. Doing things the easy way was no fun. That was just one of Sonic's quirks, you could say, pun totally intended. He then walked over to the bearer of One for All. Midoriya spotted him on his way as a relived smile appeared before jogging over to Sonic. Sonic. Perfect. You're just who I wanted to see. You want me to join your team? Sonic's brow raised. If you don't mind. Izuku replied hesitantly. Of course I don't. I'd be happy too. Sonic smiled. Thanks so much, Sonic. You have no idea how much this means to me. I tried to ask others, but no one else is willing to join my team because of the number of points I have. Midoriya explained rapidly. Sonic sheepishly scratched his quills. Yeah, sorry about that. If I knew getting first would place this much of a target on your back, then I definitely would have took it for you. It's okay. I don't think why you or anybody else knew that would have been a repercussion. All that matters now is we got to find 2 more teammates. Right. You got any students in mind? Sonic asked. Hey guys. The 2 turned around to find Uraraka coming up to them. Sonic spoke first. What's up, Gravity Girl? You here to join our team? Yeah. That's what I wanted to see. We should totally team up. The cheerful girl exclaimed. Sonic gave a thankful smile to the girl while Izuku looked like he was on the verge of breaking down. Thank you so much, Uraraka. He cried out as waves of tears poured down his face. Why yeah. It's no problem. She replied, unsure on why he was crying. Okay, Midoriya, time to get a hold of yourself. We still need 1 more teammate. Sonic reminded. The green-haired boy wiped his eyes. Right. And I know just who to ask. The 2 gave him curious looks. The 3 approached the student from behind with Izuku putting a hand on his shoulder. At the feeling of touch, Ida turned around. Izuku then asked if he wanted to join and went on to explain what their plan would be to get past the cavalry battle. Midoriya would be the rider, with Sonic in the front and Ida in the back acting like the group's engines. Meanwhile, Uraraka would be to the side and can use her quirk to lift off any weight, giving their team more mobility and making it easier to move around. I know it's not much, but it's the only evasive plan I could think of this fast. Midoriya explained. Think about it, Ida. With our combined speeds we can easily blow past anyone else around us. Sonic smirked. Ida gave a soft smile. You guys have obviously put much thought into this strategy of yours. But I'm sorry, I'm going to have to reject your offer. Their faces immediately fell. Ida. Sonic said with concern. The boy gave a rough sigh. Ever since the school year started, I've been losing to you. Ida stated with his eyes on the ground. Back at the mock battle I've lost to both you and Uraraka. His eyes then landed upon Sonic. Sonic, it may not have seemed like it recently, but we are still rivals. You continue to still outclass me in speed. If I continue to follow you, all 3 of you, then I will never get better. He turned around to the group who he will be teaming up with, which consisted of Todoroki, Yaoyorozu, and Kaminari. Do not take this as an insult. You guys are still my friends. But you're also my rivals. If I continue to stay in your shadows, then I will never be able to grow. I hope you can understand. Good luck out there. He spoke as him and his newly formed group walked away. Ida. Uraraka murmured. A hint of sadness and perhaps a bit of betrayal on her face. Sonic was disappointed that he didn't want to join their team. But he also completely understood where Ida was coming from. As a matter of fact, what Ida had told them was what he had practically said to his past self. If classic Sonic was constantly by his side, then he would never be able to truly grow on his own. The same is applied to Ida. Well, that's a shame. But I can see where he's coming from. Sonic said. Uraraka sighed next to him. Yeah. And we still have to find another teammate on top of that. What do you think, Deku? The 2 turned to him to find the green-haired boy deep in thought, mumbling something. Stay in your shadows, stay in your shadows, shadows. Shadows. Izuku's face then lit up like a firework before turning to them. That's it. Shadows. I know just who to ask. Classic Sonic managed to slip through the many groups of students because of his size. Sometimes being small wasn't so bad. His eyes scanned the area until he found who he was looking for. Pony held onto her arm awkwardly while standing there with her back turned to Classic Sonic. Her head was looking around. It seemed she was alone but was looking for someone specific. Classic Sonic came up behind her before tapping her on her leg. She turned around as a cheerful smile appeared on her face at the sight of the blue hedgehog. Maurice. Thank goodness I was looking for you. I was starting to think I wouldn't be able to find a teammate. Pony said. Classic Sonic chuckled before nodding his head. Me and you together on a team again. Just like back at the 2v2 battles. This is going to be so much fun. She exclaimed happily, clapping her hands like if a toddler was just given a lollipop by their mother. Classic Sonic agreed before motioning to a group of students. Oh, alright. I suppose we do still need to find 2 more teammates. Pony gave an awkward laugh. The two moved forward looking for any possible teammate. Classic Sonic's eyes then spotted silver hair up ahead. A smile formed as he jogged over to Reiko while waving Pony to follow him. As he got closer, Reiko noticed him. Hey Maurice. She almost whispered. Classic Sonic waved before pointing over to Pony, who gave a weak wave. Reiko stared at her for a moment before realizing what Classic Sonic was trying to imply. Oh, you want me to join your guys' team? Reiko asked, receiving a nod. I'm sorry Maurice, but I'm actually already a part of a team. She stepped out of the way to reveal 2 students. Both were a part of his class. The first one was who you would say became the class's big sister, otherwise known as Izuku Kendo, and the second was a dark forest-colored hair girl who also had unique sharp teeth named Setsuna Tokeichi. Hi Maurice. How've you been? Monoma hasn't been giving you any more trouble recently, has he? Kendo questioned with a brow raised. Classic Sonic smirked but shook his head. Sorry about stealing your friend here, Blue, but we need her to win this thing. Setsuna exclaimed loudly, pumping a fist into the air. You can understand that, right? The young Sonic nodded. He wished the 3 of them luck and turned around back to Pony, but before he could take another step, Reiko called out to him. Maurice, wait. Classic Sonic turned his head back. We still can fit 1 more person. There's only 3 of us. Do you want to join? She asked meekly. Classic Sonic's eyes widened, he then turned back to Pony, whose eyes were also slightly widened. She stared back at Classic Sonic with a bit of fear and worry on her face. Wondering what his answer will be. Who he will choose. He stood there for a few moments in thought with 4 pairs of eyes on him. He hated having to choose between 2 friends. Especially ones he was close with. But the answer was obvious. As much as he would love to team with Reiko. She already had 2 teammates with her while he was Pony's only teammate. He couldn't just abandon her. He answered by shaking his head before motioning behind to Pony, showing he was already in a team. Oh, I see, it's okay though, don't worry, good luck out there Maurice. She said with a hint of disappointment in her voice before turning and walking away. Her 2 teammates looked between the blue hedgehog and their retreating teammate with worry in their eyes before following after her. Classic Sonic sighed with a frown. He could tell she was a bit hurt but was sure she would get over it soon. He turned back to Pony before brief surprise struck him. His brows raised as he could see she was staring at Reiko, who was now a bit away. But was she glaring at her? Pony then glanced back down to the blue hedgehog, who was tilting his head at her. Her face then returned back to its normal, happy, cheerful self. That iconic bright smile of hers returning too. Why are you looking at me like that, Maurice? I'm fine. Really? She said, leaning down and putting a hand on Classic Sonic's back. Pushing the 2 of them away from where they just were. Anywhere was fine with Pony. Just anywhere but there at this moment. She was so focused she didn't take into account the look of confusion on classic Sonic's face. Deep within, Pony was having inner conflict. She didn't know why, but the thought of someone stealing Maurice. Her best friend away from her terrified Pony. Sure, she spoke and made a few friends with some of her classmates. Including even Maurice's own brother Sonic and his friends over at Class 1A. But she didn't feel that same fear if she thought about them leaving her behind alone like the thought of Maurice doing it. She knew Maurice was friends with Reiko and had gotten closer to her over time. It had never bothered Pony, so why was it now? Why was she feeling this? Jealousy towards Reiko? She got the first thing out of the way, which was love. She stood by the fact that she was not romantically interested in Maurice. He wasn't even her type and was way too young for her tastes. So if it wasn't love, then why? Why was she feeling like this? Was it just because they were good friends? She did share to him a bit about her family, which she rarely ever did with anyone else. Or maybe, just maybe, it was because classic Sonic was the first person to ever show her kindness and friendship that she so desperately needed in the past. As the two walked away, classic Sonic didn't notice Pony looking over her shoulder, giving a small glare towards the silver-haired girl. So, Sonic will be at the front acting as our engine. You and Uraraka will be at the back. She'll be lifting any unnecessary weight off so nothing can hold Sonic back, while you will be providing defense and offense around us. That just leaves me as the rider. So what do you say? Will you join us? Izuku gave a pleading look. Tokoyami. The student with a raven for a head closed his eyes in thought. Izuku, Uraraka, and Sonic braced themselves for a possible no. Sure. Really? You'll actually join us? Midoriya said in shock, while Sonic and Uraraka grinned at what they were hearing. Tokoyami nodded. I don't see why not. You've presented to me a decent enough strategy that makes sense. A plan that just might be our ticket to the next round. Welcome to the team then, buddy. It's great to have ya. Sonic said, slapping a hand on his back. Yeah. With you we totally got this. Uraraka agreed. Hey. You. A voice made themselves known as the four turned to them. It was a girl who was pointing at them, or more specifically at Midoriya. She had short shoulder-length pink hair that was styled into dreadlocks. She wore all types of equipment and machinery on her, with a jet pack on her back and massive metallic boots that looked like they were straight out of the future. On her head she wore steampunk-like goggles that covered her eyes. I'm a student from the support course. The name's Mei Hatsum. She introduced herself, taking off her goggles to reveal yellow eyes that had a cross on her pupils. Wow! Those are some unique eyes. And wait, is that a jet pack on her back? Sonic thought. Sonic had to admit. Her getup was pretty impressive. If they did happen to actually work, then she probably had other tech and gizmos that could rival even Eggman's. Oh. I remember you. You're that weirdo from the obstacle course. Uraraka claimed. Strange, I didn't see her. But then again, I was focusing mostly on either saving people or dealing with Boom Boy. We haven't met, but I would like to use your current fame to my personal advantage. Mei flat out said, ignoring Uraraka's comment. Let's team up. Oh, sorry Hatsum, but we're actually already full-on teammates, sorry. Izuku apologized sheepishly. Ah, dang it. And this was the perfect opportunity to show off my babies too. She whined. Sonic and Tokoyami shared a look. Babies? I was hoping that I and my gadgets would catch the eyes of big companies out there. Mei frowned. Especially this one that I designed off a certain pro hero's backpack. She turned around to show off the jet pack on her back. Izuku stared at it before his face shined with recognition. Hey! I know that. Air jet. The Buster hero has one of those. Izuku shouted. Isn't he awesome? Mei beamed. Yeah, I love that guy. From there, Sonic only scratched his cheek as he watched the two ramble on about heroes and support stuff. Welp, we lost him. Sonic said while Tokoyami shook his head beside him, crossing his arms. Sonic looked towards Uraraka but was perplexed to see her state. She was staring at the two with the most stoic face possible. One of her eyes were twitching while both of her hands were balled into fists. Wait a minute, does she? No way. A grin started to form on the blue hedgehog's face. He's seen that look far too many times from a certain pink hedgehog. Uraraka continued to stare before finally relaxing herself. She smiled before turning to the other two. Those two sure get along well, don't they? However, she was caught off guard by the teasing smirk Sonic was giving her. Sonic? Why are you smiling at me like that? Oh, nothing, just love to smile, that's all. Sonic then winked at her, causing the gravity-manipulating girl to go beet red, knowing full well Sonic knew what was up. Eventually Mei walked off, leaving the four to discuss any more details and strategy in their plan, as there was only 5 minutes remaining until the cavalry battle would begin. If you haven't found a team yet, then you better get your butts in gear. Present Mike came over the speaker. Because there's only 5 minutes remaining. Classic Sonic put a finger to his chin. So far him and Pony haven't been able to find any more teammates. Which was a problem since it was required to have 3 or more. 2 wasn't going to cut it. He turned his head back to Pony, who seemed to be down. She was just staring at the floor. Classic Sonic figured it has something to do with whatever that was back there. He didn't know if it was just him, but he sensed an awful lot of tension between Pony and Reiko back there. Most of it coming from Pony. But could he really blame her though? She only felt threatened about the chance of being alone. Right? Hey, Maurice. His thoughts were cut short as Pony spoke up. He turned to her, but when she looked up towards him she wouldn't keep eye contact. I am so sorry if it felt like I was putting pressure on you back there. She said softly as Classic Sonic listened. It's not like I have anything against Yanagi. Really, I don't. It's just, I got scared. Scared that, you would leave me. I was scared I would be alone again. Her voice started to break as she held on to her arms. Okay, Classic Sonic was really starting to get concerned. Alone again? What was she talking about? I know you're probably confused. And I know I really shouldn't be suddenly throwing this onto you, but I have to know. You won't stop being my friend, right? Classic Sonic only stood still, unsure on how to answer. He had never seen this side of Pony before. This was different from that one time before the mock battles. The girl that was full of hopeful and positive energy seemed to be missing. Replaced by this one that seemed to be only feeling pain. Another thing that he picked up on was that Pony for some reason felt alone. Or at least used to. He never pried into her past, the much same with her with his. But from what he was hearing it seemed to be much darker than what he would have thought a high school teenage girl would have. Classic Sonic knew what he had to do. He walked up to the girl with horns on her head before he then held out his fist with a singular pinky sticking out. What? A pinky promise. Pony gasped in surprise. The young Sonic gave her a warm smile before nodding. This was how he was going to let her know that they will always be friends. Pony sniffed as her bright, big blue eyes watered up. She giggled before wrapping her pinky around Classic Sonic's gloved pinky finger. Friends, forever. Classic Sonic nodded before the two let go. Their friendship now destined to last for eternity. Hey. You too. Both Classic Sonic and Pony quickly turned to the voice where they found 2 people. The owner of the voice was a boy with messy frizzy indigo hair and tired eyes who had his hands in his pocket. The second boy Classic Sonic was pretty sure was from his future self's class. He had blonde short hair and had a large bulky tail with matching color hair at the tip. But something about the boy struck the hedgehog wrong. He seemed out of it. Like he wasn't really all there. His eyes just stared off blankly at nothing, like he was in a daydream. And he stood there precisely still, almost like he was a robot. Suddenly the boy who spoke before walked up. "If you two are done with your little sob show, then I'm here to make you both a proposal to join our team." He spoke with a look of boredom on his face. Classic Sonic and Pony shared a glance. They both silently agreed that there was something untrustworthy about this guy. But with the time they had left, they didn't really have any other option. Pony nodded her head. "Why, yeah, sure. We would low dash." Unknowingly Pony cut herself off to silence. Classic Sonic looked at her confused before his eyes widened in shock. She was now in that dazed state like the other boy. She was just staring off into nothingness too. Classic Sonic instantly snapped towards the indigo-haired boy, shooting him a glare. What the heck did he do to her? The boy only looked at him with a cocky smirk. "Relax, she's not hurt. So do you want to join my team or not?" There was no way on earth he was going to join this creep. He was going to grab Pony and hightail it out of here. "I hope all you lots formed in team. Because there's only 1 minute remaining." Present Mike announced. "Better decide quickly. We're running short on time," he said, keeping that arrogant smile on his face. Classic Sonic continued to glare at him before regrettably nodding his head. "Great, let me introduce myself. My name's Hitoshi Shinso." "Now what's your name?" Shinso asked. The young Sonic only crossed his arms while keeping up his glare. "Well, I got to address you somehow, do I?" He was met back by dead silence. Shinso sighed. "Fine then, I'll just call you Blue." The indigo-haired boy then looked towards Pony and the other student, who continued to stand there like they were puppets. "Follow me." What happened next baffled the young hedgehog. On command both of them started to follow the boy. So this kid seemed like he had some type of mind control quirk or something. But if so, why hasn't he used it on Classic Sonic yet? With his two other teammates, the blue hedgehog unfortunately had to follow Shinso to where all the other teams were starting to meet up. Classic Sonic was looking at Pony with worry, who only continued to look straight ahead like she was a zombie. He then glanced to Shinso, where he caught him peeping over his shoulder at him, studying the blue hedgehog. Shinso chuckled. "You look just like him, you know. Your brother Sonic." Classic Sonic's eyes widened. This guy knew about Sonic? What? It's blatantly obvious you two are related. It's super eerie how similar but different you two look. Classic Sonic didn't answer back, only deciding to look away. Shinso frowned as he continued to watch the hedgehog before looking back forward. On the outside he wasn't showing it. But Shinso was starting to have growing worry inside of him. Why isn't he responding to me? There's no way he has my quirk figured out. If I don't get him to talk soon, he's going to become a problem later on. Midnight stretched her arm as the timer came to end, a horn going off announcing the 15 minutes was over. Oh goody. It's time to get this party started. After 15 minutes to pick teammates and talk strategy, 12 cavalry teams are preparing to go head-to-head. Present Mike explained. Interesting, there are some teams with students I wouldn't have thought would team up together, Aizawa noted. Up in the stands Toshinori sat in anticipation while wiping his brow with a handkerchief. So far Izuku was doing great. Perhaps a bit too great, since now he was a walking target for others to go after. But he did have Sonic with him on his team. Despite the festival arriving already, it seemed to Toshinori that Sonic and Maurice were really keeping their promise on helping Izuku with controlling One for All. Keep it up you three. If you continue as you've done so far, then there's no doubt the three of you will make it to the finals, he thought. Sonic readied himself as he tied his headband that displayed the number 225 in red color around one of his quills. This would work out a lot since if anyone tried to reach and grab for his headband they would most likely be pulling out a handful of sharp quills instead. Sonic then grabbed and held on to Izuku's legs while Uraraka and Tokoyami supported the rest of his weight from behind. Tokoyami's sentient quirk Dark Shadow came out of him before looming overhead of the four. Sonic glanced up nervously, hey, Dark Shadow right? Sorry about knocking you out that one time during hero training. We're cool right? Dark Shadow looked down at the blue blur. His yellow misty eyes just staring into Sonic's. Sonic thought those eyes would suck the soul out of his body any second. Dark Shadow looked back forward, it's fine. But by the sound of its voice, it did not sound fine. Sonic gave a nervous chuckle, yeah that thing totally wants me dead. Tokoyami spoke, don't mind him Sonic, he'll get over it. Eventually. Alright guys. Izuku said, his arms wrapped around Uraraka and Tokoyami's shoulders. Remember. We just need to stay out of everyone else's way. We don't need their headbands. But I'm sure they'll be after us. Which is where I come in. With my speed we'll leave all of these slowpokes in the dust. Sonic proudly proclaimed. Speed for the win. We got this guys. Uraraka cheered. Meanwhile with classic Sonic, unlike his future self he was the rider of his team. Shinso was at the front while Pony and the Class 1A boy were at the back with classic Sonic on top. His headband of 220 points wrapped the same way around one of his quills like his older self. Classic Sonic glanced down to Pony with a worried expression. She was carrying him through the order of Shinso but was only looking straight ahead with that dazed look still. The only thing the little hedgehog knew was that Shinso better fix her when this is all done. As all of the teams prepared themselves present Mike came back on the mic, alright all you first years. I hope you're happy with your teams. Because this party is about to get started. He exclaimed as the audience cheered in excitement. One final countdown before the game starts. 3. All of the teams readied themselves, most of them had their eyes of Midoriya's team. Bakugou who was the rider of his team that consisted of Kirishima, Siro, and Mina, cracked his knuckles with his usual malevolent grin on his face. Get him. 2. Get ready Blue, the real fun's about to begin. Shinso smirked over his shoulder at the blue hedgehog. Classic Sonic only ignored him as he focused on the competition around him. 1. Sonic tightened his grip onto Izuku's legs. He could see most of the teams had their eyes on them. He smirked as he put a foot forward. Let's do this guys. Yeah. Izuku and Uraraka shouted while Tokoyami stayed silent. Begin. Almost on most of the teams made a beeline towards Sonic's team. Those 10 million points are ours. Tetsu shouted as his team charged at them. I'll be taking that headband, Midoriya. The invisible girl Hagakure cackled as her team came at them which funny enough had that Hatsumi girl. You're gonna regret not wanting to show off my babies. They really aren't giving us a chance huh? Tokoyami said as Dark Shadow struck a defensive position, what's the plan Midoriya? It's simple. We're running away. The green-haired boy shouted. Then I'll make running away a piece of cake. They'll never catch up to us. Sonic gave a cocky smirk while the distance between them and the teams started to close in fast. Uraraka. Use your quirk now. Izuku shouted. Right. She then tapped herself, Tokoyami and Midoriya with the exception of Sonic as the three levitated off the ground. Hold on tight guys. You're about to experience some serious speed. Sonic warned as he was just about to take off. Oh no you don't. You're not going anywhere. Tetsu yelled as one of his teammates used his quirk causing the ground that Sonic was standing on to turn into a sticky mud/quicksand-like substance. Sonic's face fell into shock as his feet sunk into the ground, unable to pull them out. The heck? Quicksand. Sonic mentally shouted. CRP guys. I'm stuck. I can't move my feet. What? What's happening? Uraraka exclaimed. Sonic stuck. It must be that guy's quirk up ahead. Izuku noted as that group as well as others were now much closer. They were essentially dead in the water right now. However, Midoriya had an idea. Sonic might be trapped, but luckily we're not. Tokoyami, can you have Dark Shadow free Sonic by clawing at the mud? Midoriya asked frantically. Maybe, it might work. Dark Shadow. Try to the best of your ability to free Sonic. He said as the shadow levitated closer to Sonic's legs, which were by now knee-high sunken into the ground. Got it. Dark Shadow then began to hack at the mud. Anytime now. Sonic said as the teams were now just only a couple feet away. Almost, there. At the exact moment he could move his legs again. Sonic jumped out of the area where the ground was turned into mud with his teammates holding onto him as well. Because of Uraraka's quirk there was no extra weight to carry. Which also meant there was nothing to hold his speed back. No. They escaped. Now Sonic. Izuku screamed. Sonic smirked as held onto Izuku's legs tighter. His legs then bent into a running position. Here we go. It was almost like everything around the three became a blur of colors and light as Sonic boosted forward at impossible speeds. They felt like their faces would come right off because of the sheer G-force. Izuku thought he was on the world's fastest roller coaster while Dark Shadow was even dangling behind them like a spaghetti noodle screaming in terror. Holy shi! Tetsu cut himself off as the wind that was generated from the group that blazed past them almost knocked them down. That was crazy. He's even faster than Maurice. He added. With Ida's group. Todoroki's eyes widened as he barely managed to put up an ice wall in time to protect themselves from the wind Sonic generated as he ran past them. Ida only stood there starstruck. Sonic, your speed still continues to impress me every day. I hope one day I'll be as fast as you. As Sonic approached the other side of the arena he had to really slow down before coming to a stop, since if he came to an abrupt stop at those speeds, the whiplash could seriously hurt his friends. After coming to a stop, he turned to find all of the groups who were on the other side of the arena where they just were staring at them in shock. Would you look at that? Sonic showing us once again that maybe speed is all you need. Present Mike shouted as the crowd went wild at the scene. Aizawa hummed, he does like to show it off a lot. With Bakugou's groups, he was gritting his teeth in anger. That arrogant blue bstrd. He thinks he's so cool. After them. He commanded as they charged towards them. Most of the other teams snapped out of their shock before charging at them or at other teams. Classic Sonic watched his future self in amazement. Would he really become this fast in the future? Only time would tell. Shinso noticed this before speaking. I wonder, if you're just as fast as your brother. Then it probably would have been better if I was the rider. Classic Sonic continued to ignore him so far. Even if he could speak he wouldn't talk to this guy. Ha! I show off a little speed and now they all want a piece of me. Sonic turned around to his teammates but cringed when he saw the state they were in. Izuku and Uraraka both possessed wide eyes, pale faces, and their hair was all over the place. Tokoyami's feathers were ruffled while Dark Shadow was shivering while holding on to himself. SS Sonic, I know I said we needed to get away, BB, but I didn't mean that quickly. Izuku barely managed to speak out. I think I'm gonna hurl. Uraraka covered her mouth. Too fast, too fast, too fast. Dark Shadow repeated over and over again. Sonic chuckled, heh, sorry guys. I'll take it down a notch next time. As of now, most of the team started to close in on them. What's next guys? Sonic asked. We continue to isolate ourselves from them. Uraraka. Take a quick breather. Izuku said, as her face did look slightly green. She had been using her quirk for a bit, plus she also did get a taste of the speed of sound. So obviously it had taken a toll on her. Oh okay. Release. She exclaimed as the effects of zero gravity wore off on Izuku and Tokoyami. At most we have 30 seconds of rest before we'll have to move again, Tokoyami concluded. Slower this time. He eyed Sonic, who gave an apologetic smile. Agreed. We just need to make sure that Midoriya had to quiet himself as he started to hear popping-like sounds. Sonic's ears twitched as he heard them too. What is that? He thought, but then both his and Midoriya's faces twisted into a look of horror as that sound only meant one thing. Trouble. Sonic muttered as he looked into the sky to see Bakugou flying down at them with his explosions. DKU. Give me that headband. Tokoyami. Izuku shouted in fear. Dark Shadow, protect us. He commanded as his sentient quirk flew up towards the explosive blonde. Bakugou sent an explosion their way, but Dark Shadow blocked it with its body. What the hell is that? Bakugou said in surprise before his teammate Zero caught him with his tape, bringing him back to his team. Nice catch. Kirishima praised, receiving a thankful nod from Zero. Wait, what? Bakugou of Class 1A was separated from his horses. Is that even allowed? Present Mike questioned. He didn't touch the ground, so it's fair game. Midnight confirmed. Sonic and his team started to move, only this time at the same speed around everyone else since Uraraka's quirk is off. Nice job back there, Dark Shadow. Tokoyami thanked. You feel alright back there, Gravity Girl? Sonic asked. I am doing alright. Just focusing on keeping my lunch inside of me. Uraraka replied with a small laugh. Give me a minute or two and I can use my quirk again. Sounds good. Sonic smirked as they continued moving with a bunch of teams hot on their trail. A lot has happened since the match started, so how about we take a look at the scoreboard? Present Mike said as the many jumbo screens flashed a scoreboard. So far Sonic's team was still first, but besides them Class 1A wasn't doing too hot. Class 1B was dominating. Even Bakugou's team was at 0 points. Bakugou looked at the screen in shock before putting his hands on his head. When the hell did someone take his headband? And how did he not notice? He turned to the side to find another group next to theirs where a rider who was a boy with blonde hair was twirling his headband around his finger. What a surprise, Class 1A always focusing on themselves that they don't even think to worry about others. The boy shook his head in disapproval. So small-minded. CRP, he got us. Mina squealed. UBSTRD. Give that back. Bakugou demanded, raising his arm towards the boy fully intended on blasting him. However, now that I've redirected your attention away from yourselves, I want to ask you a question. The blonde boy revealed. The crackles and small pops in Bakugou's hand ceased. Ask what? The boy's face grew a wide smile. You're that kid from that sludge villain attack a while back, aren't you? Bakugou's eyes widened. How do you know about that? It was quite literally everywhere, you brute. So big yet so dumb. He mocked. Don't listen to him, Bakugou, he's just trying to get under your skin. Kirishima tried to say, but Bakugou wasn't listening. His eyes narrowed at the boy as he felt his anger rising inside of him. Monoma, they're coming, the boy's teammate said as another team was coming their way. Monoma nodded back before turning back to Bakugou. You and your class love to think you're the best. But if I recall correctly, wasn't it one of my classmates that saved your life back then? A student of Class 1B? Monoma asked. Didn't Maurice save your life? Explosions fumed out of Bakugou's hands as he heard that name and was reminded of his past failure. He still couldn't live with himself the same after being saved by the two hedgehogs. Which is why he was so focused and desperate on beating them. It's ironic really, for a student of the superior class to be saved by a student of the inferior class, huh? Monoma continued, you know, it must be strange to play the role of the victim. But I or my class couldn't possibly relate. Bakugou's face darkened. Kirishima, we have a change of plans. He growled. Kirishima as well as Mina and Siro gasped as they felt an aura of pure fury radiating from Bakugou. Before we take down Deku and the mouse, we're gonna kill this clown and every last one of these goddamn B-list idiots. Classic Sonic Barley managed to dodge the barrage of purple ball and tongue strikes that aimed for his headband that came from the team pursuing them. The team consisted of Class 1A students, which was a large six-armed student that could stretch his arms into any shape, who had a mask over his mouth named Shuji, who in turn was covering Mineta and Tsuyu with his arms, keeping them out of sight except for a small hole where a tongue and purple sticky ball would come out of. Mineta peeked his head out of the hole. Give up that headband, Sonic. It belongs to us. He yelled. You can't run away forever. Classic Sonic laughed. He thought he was Sonic. Which, Mineta technically wasn't wrong. But it was obvious he thought he was his class's Sonic. Shinso continued to run before he stepped on something that made him stop. He looked down and cursed as he stepped on one of those sticky balls, keeping him there. We're stuck. He looked over at Pony. Horse girl, keep them at bay and off our backs. He commanded as Pony mindlessly started to fire multiple sets of horns towards the enemy team. Classic Sonic frowned. Maybe if Shinso took the time to learn her name before controlling her mind, then he probably wouldn't have to call her names in the first place. Shuji covered up the small hole as he blocked the onslaught of horns, most breaking on impact while a few stabbed him, causing him to hiss. Shinso eventually gave up on trying to get his foot unstuck. But for some reason he had a smirk on his face. He held up his hand before Pony stopped firing. Classic Sonic raised a brow. What was he up to? Shuji shook off any horns that were attached to him before he charged towards them. As they got closer, Shinso spoke. Hey, six-armed freak. Has anybody ever loved you in your life? Classic Sonic looked at him in shock. Why the heck would he say that? Shuji also looked surprised before he glared at the indigo-haired boy. You have quite the nerve to insult me during a fig dash. Just like with Pony, the boy stopped speaking before coming to an abrupt stop. His teammates became confused. *ribbit Shuji. Why'd you stop? Tsuyu asked with a hint of concern. Yeah. They're right there. Let's get them, Shuji. Mineta also agreed, but he didn't respond to them as he only stood there in a daze. Classic Sonic only watched. Once again Shinso used his quirk on somebody. But that same question was itching in the blue hedgehog's head. Why hasn't he used his quirk on him still? Shinso laughed at the team. Now then, I want you to do a favor for me, Six Arms. Reveal your teammates. As ordered, Shuji shifted his arms around before bringing them to his side. Tsuyu and Mineta were now exposed on top of his back and shoulders with fear on their faces. Shuji. What are you doing? This is not a part of the plan. Mineta freaked out. Shinso glanced over to Pony. Fire. Multiple sets of horns were then fired at the team. Shinso then looked to Classic Sonic. Your turn, Blue. Classic Sonic only nodded before he jumped into the air, landing onto one of Pony's horns. He rode it like he did back during the mock battles as he flew towards the paralyzed team. Whoa! Check out Maurice. He's riding onto Tsunatori's horns like he's surfing in tidal wave at the beach. Present Mike shouted as Classic Sonic appeared on the jumbo screens. The whole stadium cheered in approval. Sonic, who happened to be on the other side of the arena, smiled as he saw his past self. Good going, little buddy. Sonic did notice his past self's team before. And was a bit curious to see he had teamed up with that indigo-haired boy who had challenged him and his class. Shinso was it? But Sonic was more curious and a bit weirded out by the state Pony and Ojiro were in. They looked like zombies. Was this by any chance Shinso's doing? Sonic didn't know. But he would most likely find out after the cavalry battle. While Mineta continued to freak out about being exposed. Tsuyu noticed classic Sonic flying towards them. "Look out!" she called out before shooting her tongue at him. Classic Sonic jumped out of the way towards another horn before her tongue hit the horn he was just on. Classic Sonic held on before pulling himself up. As long as he didn't touch the ground he would be fine and wouldn't get disqualified. He then began to jump from horn to horn, narrowly dodging sticky ball and tongue strikes alike. As he was about to collide with them he jumped high into the air. The frog girl shot out her tongue at him once more before classic Sonic twisted his body midair, barely dodging it. He then grabbed her tongue with his hand. Tsuyu yelped while on instinct pulled her tongue back as classic Sonic held on. He let go at the last moment, landing in between Tsuyu and Mineta where he quickly swiped their headbands off their heads including Shuji's. Tsuyu attempted to shoot her tongue at him but classic Sonic bent his head back where it ended up hitting Mineta square in the eye, causing him to cry out in pain. "Hitch, why'd you do that?" he cried as held his eye. "Whoops, sorry. Rib bit." Classic Sonic snickered and waved before jumping off them and landing on more of Pony's horns. He hopped between them, dodging more attempts by Tsuyu of getting their headbands back before landing on Ojiro's tail, who had stuck it out for him to land on by Shinso's orders. "Nice job. Let's get out of here," Shinso said as classic Sonic stuffed the newly retrieved headbands into his quills. His team now running off with Shinso missing a shoe since it was stuck to the ground where they left the stranded team they had just robbed behind. As they ran further Shinso brewed up a couple of questions he wanted to ask the young Sonic. Questions that might get him to talk. "So, blue. What's your favorite color?" Classic Sonic only stared at him like if that was an actual question. Why was he asking him this? Now of all times. He then pointed at himself, or more specifically his blue-colored fur. "Oh, makes sense," Shinso muttered. Yeah, even he had to admit that was a dumb question to ask. But he was getting desperate. He had to know if this hedgehog would be a threat to him later on if they pass. "Just trying to get to know my teammate." His eyes then traveled to Pony. "You and your friend seem awfully close. How long have you two known each other?" Classic Sonic knew the answer. It was about a month. Maybe a little bit more. But he only shrugged his shoulders in response. You know. It's probably best if you just ditch her." Classic Sonic choked on himself. What did he say? Ditch her? Why should he do that? "Look, you've seen my quirk in action. You know what I can do. You and me. People with actual power. We attract others who could only dream about doing what we can do. We're like the bait that brings in the fishes." Shinso explained. "I saw how she acted around you. She was practically clinging on to you. If you continue to surround yourself with others like that, then the only thing you'll be is distracted. Too distracted to the point you'll never reach your full potential." Classic Sonic only deadpanned at him. What was he trying to prove saying this? What was his goal? It didn't matter what Shinso was saying because Classic Sonic didn't agree. Pony wasn't a distraction. She was his friend who supports him and will continue doing that. Not saying you have to. I'm just saying in my opinion you should. Classic Sonic rolled his eyes. As much as he wanted to kick Shinso in the back of the head he couldn't. Since that might get him disqualified or it might cause his team to fall apart. His thoughts were cut off as they came to a complete stop. He looked at Shinso who was staring at something up ahead. Classic Sonic's eyes traveled up before it landed on a team full of Class 1B girls. His eyes made contact with the rider as Reiko Yanagi stared back. Ha! Looks like Boom Boy is pretty upset. Seems like his whole gimmick was just stolen. Sonic laughed as Bakugou was trading blows with another blonde boy who surprisingly also could release explosions exactly like Bakugou. Thanks to Uraraka's quirk, they were speeding past and avoiding everyone, albeit much slower than before but still faster than the other groups. A copy quirk. How interesting, I wonder if... Nope. Keep your head in the game, Midoriya. Sonic instantly shutting down Izuku's habit of muttering. Sorry. Don't worry about it. You've been doing great so far. You've all been doing awesome. Sonic jerked a thumbs up. Yeah. Go team. Uraraka laughed. Right. And if we keep this up then I think we'll get through this unscathed. With your speed, Uraraka's zero gravity and Tokoyami's dark shadow. Izuku smiled brightly. I think we'll get through this okay. Suddenly a wall of ice cut them off, making them come to a stop. Sonic's eyes widened as they turned to left to find a team approaching them. Todoroki's cold gaze only lingered straight ahead at them. His teammates continuing forward. Ito was at the front, which made sense as he was the fastest. While Momo and Kaminari were in the back with the two having a pair of roller skates on most likely created by Momo to keep up with Ita's speed. With only 7 minutes left on the clock. The cavalry battle has entered its second half. From blinding speed to absolute zero ice. We've seen it all. It's anyone's game as Class 1B has made an unexpected showing. But who will wear the 10 million points in the end? Seems like Midoriya jinxed us, Tokoyami commented. I thought we had it made. Guess I was wrong. Midoriya spoke, locking eyes with Todoroki. I'll be taking that now. Todoroki stated, referring to the headband on Izuku's head. Heh, he really seems to have it out for you, Midoriya. Tokoyami gave a small chuckle. And a bit of me too. Sonic said, remembering the challenge Todoroki gave to him. Izuku glanced down to Uraraka. Uraraka. You doing okay? I'm good. I can keep this up for a couple of more minutes. She replied. Then let's make those couple of minutes count. Sonic exclaimed as he rushed forward but not at top speed. Wait, Sonic. There's a chance this might be a trap. Izuku tried to say. Then we'll just have to take that chance. That's what being a hero is all about, Midoriya. Heroes take chances. Sonic smiled back. Izuku only stayed silent in thought before smiling too. Sonic. Sonic turned his head over his shoulder back at the green-haired boy. Call me Izuku. Sonic stared at him with brief surprise. If he remembered correctly from one of Toshinori's lessons when he and classic Sonic first arrived to this world and from what Midoriya said about first names when they met a second time for the U.A exam. Then saying someone's first name meant they were either family, lovers, or really close friends. Sonic smirked before nodding his head. You got it, Izuku. Perfect. A small smile crept up Todoroki's face before he turned to Momo. Yaoyorozu now. She nodded before a thin sheet of non-conductive fabric was created out of her stomach. Todoroki then grabbed the sheet before pulling it over himself. Yaoyorozu and Ida. Kaminari. Hope you're ready, Sonic. Because you're about to get fried. Kaminari claimed as yellow electricity danced around him. Oh. Indiscriminate shock. 1.3 million volts. He yelled as he unleashed a surge of electricity that electrocuted any teams that were around, which was a lot, as an bunch had tried to close in on Todoroki from behind only to get zapped as they all screamed in pain. Sonic had to come to a stop before Dark Shadow jumped in front of him, tanking the blast of electricity. It was so bright Sonic had to cover his eyes. While everyone else was getting shocked with electricity. Classic Sonic with his fast reflexes barely managed to catch his now purple glowing headband that flew off his head due to Reiko's quirk. Luckily it was only that one as the other two that he had stolen were hidden in his quills with the third on Shinso. It was a tug of war between the mind and physical strength as Classic Sonic pulled on the headband while Reiko's face started to strain. Unfortunately, Classic Sonic's foot slipped, causing him to let go of the 220-point headband as it went flying into Reiko's outstretched hand. "Sorry Maurice, even though we're friends I need this to win." Reiko apologized. Classic Sonic then made a face as he felt something feeling around in his quills. He reached back before pulling out a disheveled hand. His eyes widened in horror before throwing it in the air. The hand then somehow levitated in the air before it flew off to one of the girls of Reiko's group. Setsuna. Right. She had the ability to detach any part of her body and make it fly to wherever she pleased. An hand, eye, heart, or just a slice of skin. You name it. She could control it. It reconnected with her wrist before she carefully plucked out some of his quills. Ouch. These little buggers hurt a lot. She yelped. Luckily it seemed like she wasn't able to retrieve any of the other headbands he had on him. But if they wanted to pass then he would have to get back that 220-point headband. Don't let them escape. Shinso ordered as Pony shot her horns at them. The red-haired girl Kendo, who was at the front, enlarged her hand, blocking the horns. "SHT, we're going to have to get past that somehow," Shinso stated. He glanced to Ojiro before looking at Classic Sonic. A smile formed as he got an idea. Classic Sonic didn't know if he liked this idea as he was currently hanging onto the end of Ojiro's tail. According to Shinso, he's going to order Ojiro with all of his might to fling Classic Sonic high into the air and above Reiko's group to retrieve back the headband and maybe steal any others. "Trust me, you'll be fine, probably." "Wait, what?" "Tail boy go." At his command Ojiro swinged his tail as strong as he could, sending the blue hedgehog high into the air. "Look at that. Since when could hedgehogs fly?" Kendo, who was continuing on defending from Pony's attacks, looked up with wide eyes at the incoming Classic Sonic. Reiko? I think your friend is coming in a bit too hot." Reiko glanced up as her eyes slightly widened, but before she could use her telekinesis, Classic Sonic landed on top of Kendo's large hand where he gave a mock salute before flipping forward and snagging a headband out of Kendo's hair. He then reached forward, taking the 220-point headband off Reiko's head, who was still startled from him falling from the sky. "Hey! Give those back!" Setsuna yelled as she tried to grab the blue hedgehog only for her hand to be swatted away. Classic Sonic smirked only for him to suddenly be grabbed by Kendo's giant hand. Her fingers laced around him, curling into a fist. "Yes! I got him, guys! I go, OW." She suddenly threw the hedgehog as she felt multiple sharp pricks in her palm. Classic Sonic, who was curled up into a ball, went flying before uncurling and landing with Ojiro catching him. The group then made a run for it, with Classic Sonic looking back at the girls with his trademark grin as he waved. Kendo's hand shrunk before she started blowing on it. God, how sharp are those things! For real! It felt like I had touched a cactus. Setsuna exclaimed. "Which? For the record, I never have, if any of you ask." Reiko only stared at the ground a bit down. "Sorry guys, I froze up back there. I knew I shouldn't have been rider." "Aw, come on Reiko. You did great. Look how far you got us without losing a single headband." Kendo pointed out, trying to cheer her up. Setsuna gave a toothy grin. "Yeah girl. You rock." She agreed. A soft but appreciative smile formed on Reiko's lips before she glanced towards Classic Sonic, who by now was far away from them. "Nice job Maurice," she said quietly. As the surge of electricity died down, Sonic was able to put his hand down as the light disappeared. Besides Todoroki's and Sonic's group, because of dark shadow, everyone around them stood still, shocked. No, literally, they were actually shocked. Smoke came off them while bits of electricity sparked off some of the students while they groaned in pain. Todoroki then swiftly grabbed a pole that was formed by Momo before sticking it into the ground and then freezing it, which froze the ground behind them, trapping all of the other teams in ice. "Sorry, but this is the only way I can make sure none of you will get in our way." He apologized, although by the sound of his voice no one could tell if he meant it or not. "Will you look at that?" He stopped all of those teams cold in their tracks. "Wow, an ice pun, how humorous." Aizawa sighed. But nonetheless, it was only after Kaminari had immobilized the students using his electricity. In the obstacle course, he was surprised by how many people avoided his attack. He's adapted his strategy. "Wow. You actually gave some commentary for once. Nice job." Present Mike gave an thumbs up. "Thanks," Aizawa replied, annoyed. Todoroki's group with Ida's speed then swung around the trapped groups, stealing a few headbands off. "Might as well take these to assure we'll make it to the next round," he said as he summoned massive ice spikes behind him. He had now basically closed him and Sonic's group in. There was nowhere to go, as the only way out was stepping out of bounds, which would disqualify them. "Sonic, you sure you don't happen to have those power stones of yours on you? They would come in real handy right about now." Tokoyami looked at the blue hedgehog. "Trust me, you have no idea," Sonic replied. "Okay, Uraraka, you still feeling okay?" Izuku turned to her before a look of panic struck him. Her face was green with nausea, much more than before, and she had an hand over her stomach. What? "I'm HMP, fine," she said, almost barfing. Oh, okay, don't worry, we'll take it easy." Just try not to throw up on me," Izuku asked. "Or me, it would take a while to clean these feathers," Tokoyami also agreed. "Don't worry back there, gravity girl. I'll take it easy for you. It'll be like smooth sailing," Sonic promised, only to receive a shaky thumbs up from the girl. Todoroki watched them but was stumped on what to do next. They were keeping to his left side, so if he tried using his ice, he would hit Ida. And if Kaminari tried to shock him, then they could just use Dark Shadow to block it. Not to mention another blast like the one from before would probably short-circuit Kaminari. He could try to rush them with Ida, but would they even be able to catch up with Sonic? He didn't think so. His eyes glanced towards the crowd. Or more specifically, someone in the crowd watching. A large-built man who was basically on fire. The man had watched his every move so far since the festival began. Todoroki scoffed. "Only a minute left on the clock. And Todoroki has Izukumidoriya's group cornered. Who will come out on top? Damn it, that BSTRD." Todoroki muttered. Ida frowned as he watched the group ahead of him. He hated the thought of taking Uraraka's nausea as an advantage over them. It felt wrong to the core for him. But right now, he had no choice. No one knew it, but he had an ace up his sleeve. "Everybody. We have less than 60 seconds. I'm going to do something that'll make me useless to you," Ida spoke up, "but it's worth it." Sonic's ears perked. What was Ida about to do? "What are you going to do?" Todoroki questioned. "Make sure you get that headband," Ida said as the engines on his calves roared to life. Fire and heat fumed out of the exhaust pipes before it grew and turned blue in color. "Sonic, you're an amazing rival, but I'm going to show you why my speed can compare to yours." Torque over, recipro burst. Ida and his team then moved at such speeds toward them that the air around him cracked as he left behind a trail of blue flames. Sonic couldn't believe his eyes at the speed that Ida out of nowhere just achieved, and didn't react in time before they zoomed past them as Todoroki snatched the headband off Izuku's head, who also had wide eyes. What was that? It was all just in blur. Ida just ran at speeds that could give Sonic a run for his money. Present Mike exclaimed as the crowd roared at what transpired. The group zoomed around, leaving behind a dust trail before coming to a halt where even Ida's own teammates were in shock. "Ida, what was that?" Todoroki asked in disbelief. Ida caught his breath. I forced my torque and RPM into overdrive. With it, I can go at the same level of speed that Sonic went when the cavalry battle started. Unfortunately, the recoil stalls my engines for a while. No one in the class knew about it, not even Mr. Aizawa, he revealed before he turned to Sonic's group. I told you guys, I wouldn't accept staying in your shadows any longer. I'd do my best to beat you. Izuku and his group only looked at him stunned as the stadium roared again at the display. A wide grin appeared on Sonic's face. Ah man. That was awesome, Ida. You got to show me that again one day. He shouted over to the boy. Heh, maybe, just maybe. Ida chuckled. Suddenly from above Bakugou came barreling down. Which one of you has the 10 million points? But before he could attack either group, a horn sounded, signaling the end of the cavalry battle. No. Bakugou proceeded to flop on the ground, where he struck the ground with his fists over and over again like a spoiled child at a supermarket would do when their parents wouldn't buy them a toy. It wasn't long until Bakugou's group arrived with him. You okay, man? Kirishima asked. Ah. Wow. The cavalry battle has ended in an turning spin of events. Team Todoroki got the 10 million while Team Izuku was left with almost nothing. Present Mike said as the crowd cheered. Todoroki hopped off his group, landing on the ground before looking towards Sonic and his team. He held out the 10 million point headband towards them. Sorry for eliminating you. But I promised to you both before the festival started that I would beat you. No strong feelings. He said before turning around. However, he was then stopped by Sonic's voice. Wait a second, Roki. The half-red, half-white-haired boy turned around. Yeah. Sonic put an hand over his mouth in attempt to stop himself from laughing. You might want to take a look at that headband again. Todoroki only stared at him confused before he stared down at the headband in his hand. His eyes widened in shock when he realized this was not the 10 million point headband. But in fact was a headband of 225 points. I don't understand. How did you? When Kaminari flashed everyone with his electricity, I came up with the brilliant idea of switching headbands with Izuku. Since everyone was too blinded to notice. No one saw. Pretty smart, right? Sonic flashed a smile. But. And the rules said we could only wear them above our necks. Nothing was said about switching them. Sonic pointed out. Team Sonic secretly pulled an SWCHRO. They tricked Team Todoroki into grabbing the wrong headband. Up in the stands, Toshinori gave a sigh of relief. That was too close to comfort. Always leave it up to young Sonic's quick thinking. Todoroki stared at Sonic. You got lucky again. Next time, you won't be so lucky. He said coldly before walking off. Geez, can't he just have a fun time for once? Sonic thought. Now that the cavalry battle was over, all of those students were gathered together to announce the winning teams. Now let's take a look at our top teams that will be moving on to the finals. Present Mike began. In first place. Team Midoriya. Or is it Team Sonic? I am not sure. Sonic snickered as he rubbed the bridge of his nose while Izuku was bursting out in tears again. Uraraka only stood there wobbly as she was still a bit nauseous. Tokoyami only nodded in approval. In second. Team Bakugou. Bakugou fell to his knees, screaming in fury. Or was it just agony at this point? In third. Team Maurice. They've been in their own little world this whole time. Shinso grinned before turning to Classic Sonic. Well, it was a pleasure working with you, Blue. He held out his hand. But Classic Sonic only crossed his arms while tapping his foot impatiently. Oh, right, at the snap of Shinso's fingers. Pony and Ojiro jolted, the life returning to their eyes. What? What happened? That was so weird. Pony looked around confused before her eyes landed on Classic Sonic. Maurice. It was so weird. I was aware of everything that was happening but I couldn't move or dash. She was cut off again, but instead of mind control, this time it was a hug. Her big blue eyes widened as classic Sonic hugged her. Her face softened before she let out a small giggle. Thanks for worrying about me, Maurice. But I'm okay now. I promise, she whispered as she hugged him back. And finally. In fourth place. Team Todoroki. I'm sorry, I allowed myself to be deceived. Todoroki claimed while Momo put a hand on his shoulder. Hey, don't be too HRD on yourself. No one could have saw that trick Sonic pulled. Momo tried to comfort him. Yeah, because if anything it's my fault. Ida then took the blame. Oh, not you too. After classic Sonic and Pony's hug. Pony tried her best to explain everything from her point of view. And after I spoke to that guy, he took over my mind. It felt super weird. Pony exclaimed. Speaking of that guy, classic Sonic had a bone to pick with him. He turned around only to be stunned to find him gone. Where did he possibly go? It's when you talk back. Both classic Sonic and Pony turned to the sound of the voice, which was the student from class 1A that was a part of their team. Ojiro. Ojiro walked forward. I figured out how it works. The moment you respond to a question of his or when you just talk to him in general, he can take over your mind. It's how he got me. He'll use tactics on you. Whether it's a simple insult or he's trying to be a SCK up towards you to get you to speak. It's messed up, Ojiro explained. Oh man, that's creepy. I wish I knew that before. Pony shivered. Classic Sonic scratched his chin. It all made sense now. The reason why Shinso didn't or couldn't mind control classic Sonic was because classic Sonic couldn't speak back to him because he was mute. It also explained why Shinso was trying to get a word out of him during the entire cavalry battle. Whether if it was with casual questions, or something extreme like trying to convince you to cut off your friends. But nonetheless, classic Sonic was essentially immune to his quirk. Meanwhile Shinso continued walking further, his head in a state of confusion on what to do next. He didn't understand why that blue hedgehog wouldn't speak to him at all. Did he know how his quirk worked? No, that couldn't be possible. Or was he truly unable to talk? Maybe he was just faking it. Faking being able to not talk. If his older brother could talk, then surely. Wait, his brother, I need to find Sonic. Shinso thought back to the older blue hedgehog that he challenged. If anyone knew the truth to the little hedgehog, it would be Sonic. Now that the cavalry battle has finished, we're going straight into an lunch break. The festival will resume in 1 hour. Present Mike announced. All of the students who were on the field started to clear out as they made their way back through the tunnels that they came out of at the beginning of the festival. Sonic was walking with Uraraka and Ida as they walked toward some of the concessions and games that took place outside of the stadium. Wow guys! Look at all of the games. Uraraka pointed excitedly, before she sniffed the air. And the smell. It's like we're at a fair or a carnival. Sonic sniffed the air before sighing in delight. Yup, feels like I'm right back at good old Carnival Night Zone. Sonic thought with a warm smile. You said it, Gravity Girl. I wonder if they got a chili dog stand anywhere here. Sonic questioned. Ida chuckled. I have to ask Sonic, do you eat anything else besides chili dogs? Yeah. We've only seen you eat chili dogs in the school cafeteria. Are they really that good? Uraraka asked. Of course they're that good. They're the greatest invention in the whole universe. They're practically the only thing I eat. Sonic exclaimed. Well, an all-chili dog diet cannot be good for you, Sonic. It's a wonder how your speed and stamina is so good. Ida put his hands on his hips before he used his finger to push his glasses back up to the bridge of his nose, the sunlight reflecting off his glasses blocking his eyes. I recommended the following foods. You should try a salad. Or perhaps a turkey sandwich. Or maybe and Ida continued on listing healthy foods while Sonic only glanced to Uraraka, making a yapping motion with his hand that Uraraka quietly giggled at. Okay. Okay. Point taken. But what do you guys want to check out first here? Sonic asked. Moo. Let's play some of the games. Uraraka suggested. I'm down. What about you, Ida? I'm looking forward to it. Let's go see what they have. Ida said as the three walked down the crowded lane. They were trying to find any game that either looked interesting or didn't have a long line. As the three kept walking, Sonic spoke up. So Ida, about that move you used during the cavalry battle. You were holding out on us, weren't you, Ida? I had no idea you could do that. Uraraka said as she made running motions. Rest assured guys, it wasn't my intention to deceive you, I only kept reciprocal burst hidden for strategic purposes. Ida claimed. Ha. Well, just so you know, if we face each other again in one way or another, you won't be catching me off guard with it next time. Sonic replied. Ida smirked. Oh really? Because you looked pretty surprised last time when I went past you. Was not. Was too. Was no dash. Both Sonic's and Ida's faces were then grabbed and pinched by Uraraka, making them both yelp. Oh, cut it out, you two. You both may be speed rivals, but you're both also my amazing friends. Uraraka beamed. I won't allow you two to have a falling out. Don't worry, Gravity Girl. We're just having a bit of a friendly competition. Sonic reassured. Right. And because this festival's only purpose is to help make us become greater heroes in the future too. Ida explained. Now please let go, this is really starting to hurt. Ida cried out. HMP. She sounded, letting go as the boys rubbed their cheeks. The three finally managed to find a game with a short line. It seemed this game was all about knocking down All Might design pins with a baseball. Near the stand was also a person in an All Might costume with a comedically oversized head that had All Might's trademark smile. Say Sonic, how come your brother isn't with you? Ida asked as they got in line. Maurice? Not sure, I couldn't find him. He might be somewhere around here with Pony, or he might still be back at the stadium. Sonic figured. Speaking of missing people, I just realized something. Uraraka spoke up as the two turned to her. Where's Deku at? Izuku only stood still, trying his hardest to keep eye contact with Todoroki's gaze, who stood before him. His scar was much more visible by the sun's light. After the cavalry battle, Todoroki brought Midoriya to a secluded spot outside the stadium away from anybody else. What Todoroki wanted to talk about was Izuku's guess. Midoriya gulped. You brought me here, now what? The half-red, half-white-haired boy only stood there silent with his hands in his pocket, keeping up with that cold look. We should probably go eat. We only have a whole dash. There's something I don't understand, Todoroki finally spoke, cutting Izuku off. A look of confusion struck Izuku. Understand what? Todoroki took his hands out of his pocket as he straightened his posture. What exactly is your relationship to All Might? Midoriya's eyes slightly widened. What do you mean? He's by your side a lot and you receive special attention from him. He was even with you when you were sparring with Sonic yesterday, Todoroki stated. Wait. He was there. Izuku mentally yelled. Oh. I didn't know you were there. Midoriya replied. And then there's your quirk. I've never experienced it up close, but from what I've seen from the mock battle and your spar. Todoroki continued. It's a lot similar to All Might's. Izuku stiffened. Did Todoroki know? Did he figure it all out? What are you implying, Todoroki? Considering your relationship with All Might and the similarities between both of your quirks. Tell me, Midoriya. Are you secretly All Might's love child or something? Izuku only stared at Todoroki in shock. What? No. No. You got the wrong idea. It's just a big coincidence that our quirks are similar. All Might is just trying to help me control my quirk better, that's all. Midoriya frantically spoke with a nervous laugh, but by the look Todoroki was giving him he wasn't too sure if he believed him. And, why would you even think that about me at all? Midoriya asked. Todoroki stayed quiet before speaking. If there is a special connection between you and the number one hero and you're simply lying about it because you were told to, then that would give me even more reason to beat you. Midoriya's voice was caught in his throat. I don't think I follow. My father is Endeavor, the number 2 hero. I'm sure you've heard of him. Todoroki revealed. Izuku nodded. My old man is ambitious, he aims for the top. He's made a name for himself as a hero, but he's never been able to best All Might. So the symbol of peace is living proof of his failure. Todoroki explained. He's still at it though, trying to take down All Might one way or another. I'm still not sure what you're getting at. What are you trying to tell me, Todoroki? Midoriya asked. Todoroki had a look of hesitation on his face before he spoke. Have you ever heard of quirk marriages before? Midoriya slightly gasped. He had. Quirk marriages were when two powerful quirk users, a male and a female, got married just for the sole purpose of creating powerful children. However, it was reported by experts that quirk marriages most often of the time were toxic and unhealthy. By that look on your face it seems you do. So I'll save a whole explanation. My father bought out my mother's relatives so he could get his hands on her quirk. And now he's raising me to surpass All Might, Todoroki explained more. Midoriya's eyes widened as he took this information in. Todoroki gritted his teeth. It's so annoying. I refuse to be a tool for that scumbag. The only memories I have of my mother is her crying. My left side, my father's side of my quirk, I remember she used to call it unbearable. His eyes then dropped to the floor as he put a hand up to the scar on his face. Before she poured boiling hot water on my face. Izuku gasped in a mix of shock and horror. That's where his scar came from. His mother did that. The reason I picked a fight with you and Sonic was to show my old man what I'm capable of doing. Without having to rely on his damn fire quirk. I'm going to show him that I reject his power and I can take first place without using it. Todoroki stated with fury in his eyes. The tension in the air ceased as it became quiet. Midoriya's eyes traveled to the ground as he went into thought. He led his life so much more different than mine, it sounds terrifying. How strange that we both can be aiming for the top despite having different childhoods. But that's not all I wanted to talk to you about. Huh? Midoriya's eyes shot up. Todoroki leaned back against the wall, putting a foot against it. It's about your friend Sonic. Surprise struck the green-haired boy before he turned to his left as he thought he heard a noise. Sonic. What do you need to know about him? When the school year started, I and everyone else obviously noticed Sonic's powerful quirk and vast skill. So, I kept him in my radar as a rival I would have to beat and thought nothing more. Todoroki spoke before his eyes narrowed. But then the USJ happened. Izuku stiffened as his mind flashed back to the League of Villains' attack on his class at the USJ. He remembered him and his classmates in danger by that villain covered in detached hands as well as his monstrous pet Nomu. But his mind mainly flashed back to Sonic when he used the Chaos Emeralds to enter that godlike golden form of his to save his class and even All Might himself. The super form was what Sonic told him it was called. After the attack, Sonic had told him a bit more about the Chaos Emeralds and their history, but not a lot. But enough where Izuku had even wrote information about them in his hero notebook that he used to write about pro-heroes and their abilities. It fascinated Izuku as he's never seen anything like them before. Which made sense as they were from a different world entirely. Emeralds that could grant unfathomable amounts of power. It was a quirk nerd's heaven. Ahem. Midoriya snapped out of his thoughts as he could see Todoroki crossing his arms. Sorry. Like how I challenged you. I challenged Sonic saying I could beat him whether he was in that golden form of his or not. But if I'm being honest, that was just in the heat of the moment. Even if I used both of my sides, I know I would lose to him if he used that form. Todoroki admitted. Alright, he was pretty powerful. Izuku agreed. However, I don't buy the story that he gave our class. Todoroki claimed. A bit of sweat trickled down Izuku's face. What do you mean? When I went home that day, I did a little research on that Sega corporation from the UDS he said he volunteered for, but I found no existing company of the same name. Todoroki explained. Izuku started to fidget with his hands. It makes me wonder what those power stones of his really are. Or should I call them Chaos Emeralds? At that moment Midoriya's eyes widened in fear. How do you dash? So you do know the full truth. I thought so because you two are close, and because you were starting to look like a nervous wreck. Todoroki deadpanned. Dang it. Izuku internally squeaked. Look, Todoroki. You don't know how big of a situation this all is. If villains got their hands on those emeralds, it would be a disaster. I can't tell you the full truth right now. Heh, it's so crazy I'm not even sure if you'll believe me if I did tell you. Midoriya explained. Don't worry, I understand. I'm not going to force you to tell the truth. I just had to be certain if you knew. Just know I plan to beat both you and Sonic with just my mother's side. You can count on that. Todoroki promised before he walked away. Izuku only stood there dazed but had a frown as he watched Todoroki go. He sighed before he ran off to find his friends. But unbeknownst to Izuku and Todoroki, Bakugou walked out from behind the corridor where he was listening to their conversation the entire time. Chaos Emeralds. Just what the hell is Deku and the Blue Mouse hiding? He asked himself. The sound of pins hitting the ground occurred as Uraraka threw the baseball, knocking down a couple of All Might themed pins which had huge smiles. Aw man. I didn't get all of them. Uraraka huffed. Nice try, little lady. That was some plus ultra effort. The man in the All Might costume complimented, trying his best to make an All Might impression. Thanks All Might. She smiled brightly. Guess it's my turn. Sonic exclaimed as a lady who had the features of a cat reset the pins up. The fake All Might handed Sonic a baseball before the blue hedgehog eyed the pins. Just pretend those pins have Eggman's dumb face on them and you got this. Sonic started to swing his arms so fast it became a blur of blue before he threw it. The cat lady ducked with a screech as all of the pins were struck down, but not only that, the baseball went through the stand itself and through multiple other stands as screams of people could be heard. The baseball was stopped in its tracks as it hit a tree, embedding itself into it as steam came off it. Sonic stared at the hole he created, able to see the baseball through the many holes that he had made. Whoops, do I still win a prize? Sonic. Why would you throw it so fast? You could have hurt someone. Ida shouted. Sorry. I might have gone a little overboard. Sonic scratched his quills. A little. Ida responded. Well, still causing trouble I see, hedgehog. A rough voice spoke out. The three turned to find two pro heroes. The one who spoke was an older gentleman in his 40s or 50s who had short white hair. He also had a muscular build while he wore Torque's pants and a shirt that showed off his abs. The hero also had armor plates that had a construction pattern on his belt, wrists and forehead. The second hero seemed to be made out of entirely wood, who wore a dark blue bodysuit. They both had yellow passes around their necks. Hey, I know you, you're the pro hero Death Arms. Ida stated. And Kamui Woods. Uraraka pointed to the wood-themed hero. Sonic stared at the two pro heroes as he felt like he's seen them before. His eyes then widened in realization. Hey, I remember you too. You're the heroes that arrested me and my brother. Sonic claimed, although this shocked both Ida and Uraraka. Arrested? They both screamed. Remember when I told you guys me and Maurice saved Boom Boy? These guys were there too and they were not happy. Sonic explained. You broke the law. You have to understand that. Death Arms spoke. Yeah, well, at least I was saving someone's life instead of just sitting around like you guys were. Sonic shot back. Sonic. You can't be disrespectful towards him. Ida tried to say, but Sonic and the pro just glared at each other as Ida and Uraraka watched with worry. But then suddenly Death Arms started to laugh, confusing the three. Relax, we're not gonna arrest you a second time. You should be grateful Midnight came on time and knocked you two out before we got into a fight, because then you really would have gotten in trouble. Death Arms laughed. Last I recall, weren't there two of you? Kamui Wood spoke up. Yeah, where's the other little pipe squeak at? Death Arms questioned. Sonic shrugged around. I'm assuming you guys are here to watch the festival. Why else would we be here? I watched you and your brother's performance out there. You guys aren't doing too bad. And that speech of yours was pretty heroic. Keep it up and you might go from being the one getting arrested to the one doing the arresting. Death Arms chuckled. Haha, very funny. Catch you guys later. Sonic smirked. Stay out of trouble. And good luck out there in the finals. Death Arms called out as he and Kamui Woods walked away. No promises. Sonic called back. Sonic. Great, now who wants to talk to me? Sonic thought before turning around. His eyes landed upon a familiar sight. A boy with messy indigo-covered hair and tired eyes. Oh. Hey. Shinso, right? I saw you team up with Maurice during the cavalry battle. Nice job out there. What's up? Sonic smiled. Thanks, there's something I need to ask you. Can we talk? Shinso asked before he eyed Ida and Uraraka, who were staring at him. In private. Sonic blinked, yeah sure man. Sonic turned to his friends, I'll be back soon guys. In the meantime try to find Izuku or something. Oh okay we will. Uraraka nodded. Sonic then followed behind Shinso, who led him to a spot between one of the stands and a row of porta potties. Sonic covered his nose from the smell, you could have picked a spot more refreshing. I want to ask you something about your brother. Shinso spoke, getting straight to the point. Maurice? What would you like to know? Sonic asked. Does he ever speak? Even once? Sonic tilted his head at him. That's what he wanted to know. Sonic thought back to his younger days when at the time he didn't know how to speak. The reason that he didn't was because he didn't have anyone to teach him. It wasn't until he went to West Island and met Tails who knew how to talk was when he started to learn. He didn't start to talk like anybody else would until some time before the events of chaos breaking out of the MSTR Emerald and flooding Station Square. But he still wondered why Shinso was asking about it. Well, he did team up with him, so he definitely noticed that he's mute. Maybe he's just concerned for him. Sonic thought. Nah, he's unfortunately mute. But don't worry. He's getting there. One day he'll be blabbering nonsense just like his older brother. Sonic smiled brightly. I just know it. Sonic honestly expected a look of relief or just a simple, oh okay. But was surprised to find that Shinso looked petrified at his response. You okay man? What? Why yeah, I'm fine. See you later Sonic. Shinso spoke before hurriedly walking off. Sonic raised a brow, well that was weird, he then shrugged his shoulders before going back to find his friends. Welcome back sports fans. Our hour lunch break has just concluded, which means we're getting right back into the action. Present Mike exclaimed as the stadium roared with excitement. The students were now all back at the center of the stadium with the 16 finalists up front while the rest stood behind. On the side stood some of you. A's girls in cheerleader outfits doing multiple chants to pump the crowd up. The girls of Class 1A were also in cheerleader outfits as they were told by Mineta and Kaminari that they were supposed to but quickly realized they were tricked by the perverted boys. Looks like Class 1A is going full on fan service. Best idea ever. Mineta giggled with Kaminari. What? You tricked us. You're going to regret this. Momo shouted at them while the rest of the girls only stood there embarrassed. Sonic thought it was a bit mean but couldn't help himself and chuckled at the display. He then saw Classic Sonic and Pony walking towards him. Hey guys. You ready for this? Classic Sonic nodded eagerly while Pony smiled, you bet Sonic. Despite the cavalry battle being a bit of a blur for me. I'm so ready. Pony exclaimed, throwing a punch into the air. But I'm still a bit nervous, she added. Don't worry. Just keep your chin up and you'll be fine. Sonic said as Midoriya walked up next to him. Oh hey man. Where've you been? Hey Sonic. There's something important I have to talk to you and Maurice about later. Midoriya stated with a look of uncertainty. Sonic and Classic Sonic shared a look, okay man. Sounds good. After the side games, the top 16 students who won the cavalry battle will be duking it out in a one-on-one tournament-style fighting competition. Present Mike explained. Midnight, who was up on the podium, held a yellow box. We will decide who faces who by drawing lots. Afterwards you can enjoy the pleasure of the recreational games before we start. The 16 finalists will have the option to participate in those activities or sitting out to prepare for their matches. She explained. Now let's begin. Excuse me, a voice sounded. Everyone turned around to find Ojiro with his hand raised in the air. I'm sorry, but I'm withdrawing. Ojiro, no way. Izuku exclaimed. Everyone was shocked as they heard this. Why would he want to throw this opportunity away? Wait, what? How come Ojiro? Sonic asked. But this is a rare opportunity for you to get scouted. Ida tried to explain. It just wouldn't be right. I barely remember anything during the cavalry battle. I think it was that guy's quirk. He said. Sonic's eyes widened quickly, remembering that Shinso guy was on his and Classic Sonic's team. He glanced over to him as Shinso looked away from the scene. Sonic then glanced to Classic Sonic, who was glaring at Shinso while Pony just held on to her arm. This is strange. Does this have anything to do with what Shinso asked me about Maurice? Sonic thought. Ojiro clenched his fists. I know this is a great opportunity. And I wish I could take advantage over it, but my conscience isn't letting me. Think about what you're doing, Ojiro. Izuku exclaimed. I have okay. His voice raised. Everyone gave their all in round 2. While I was just someone's puppet. I don't want to move on if I don't even know how I got here. Ojiro continued. He then felt a soft hand land on his shoulder and turned to find Pony. Hey, I wasn't in control of my mind also. But I'm still going to move forward. You don't have to feel shame or feel like you can't continue. Pony argued. It's not about that. I'm not saying you should drop out too. This is just about my pride and what I strictly believe in. He replied as his tail twitched. So please, give my spot to someone else. All of the students turned towards Midnight, who was thinking. A smile then crept up her face as she came to a conclusion. Very well. I hereby declare that you are withdrawn from the finals. But this means we will have to have someone from the 5th place team to take your spot. Midnight stated as everyone turned to Kendo, Reiko and Setsuna. The red-head girl Kendo stepped up, MDM. I believe it should be Reiko who takes Ojiro's spot. Reiko looked at her in shock. What? Me? And no. I can't. If anyone should do it, it's you, Kendo. Reiko tried to say before Kendo grabbed her by the shoulders. Listen. You deserve this. You lead us all the way to 5th place. And even though we got our headbands stolen, you managed to get some back. Kendo exclaimed. You earned this, Reiko. The silver-haired girl looked at her unsure. Her eyes traveled around frantically before they landed on Classic Sonic. Classic Sonic. Her first friend that she made here. The friend that inspired her to reach out of her bubble and make friends with others. He was smiling at her with that all-too-familiar grin of his. He nodded at her with that iconic smile still plastered to his face. A smile that told Reiko to go for it. A similar smile then appeared on Reiko. Oh, okay. I'll do it. Classic Sonic gave a thumbs up to her. But this didn't go unnoticed by Pony. Her hands clenched into fists as that feeling of jealousy and insecurity from before returned. She never told Classic Sonic this, but when her mind was under the influence of Shinso. Not only was she aware of everything happening around her, but she could hear as well. It's probably best if you just ditch her, Shinso's voice rung in her mind. I saw how she acted around you. She was practically clinging on to you. If you continue to surround yourself with others like that, then the only thing you'll be is distracted. Too distracted to the point you'll never reach your full potential. And no. He wouldn't. Maurice would never ditch me. He even pinky promised that we would always be friends. I'm not a distraction, right? Pony panicked as a feeling that told her otherwise rose in her stomach. He wouldn't, he's not like everyone else who I've been friends with, who've abandoned me. Okay then. Reiko Yanagi. You have Herbie officially been moved up to the finals. Midnight declared. The 16 combatants then one by one proceeded to draw lots to see who they would up against. Take a look at the brackets, my dears. Here are your opponents. Midnight pointed to the screen above, which showed multiple brackets of who would be fighting who. Bracket 1. Maurice Hedgehog vs Hitoshi Shinso. Denki Kaminari vs Tenya Ida. Izukumidoriya vs Fumikichi Tokoyami. Hanta Siro vs Shototodoroki. Bracket 2. Sonicthehedgehog vs Momo Yaoyorozu. Mina Ashido vs Achiko Uraraka. Pony Tsunatori vs Reiko Yanagi. Eijiro Kirishima vs Katsuki Bakugou. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 7. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Husbeck on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.